Today we're going to be talking about simplifying rational expressions. So first it says you can make equivalent fractions by multiplying both parts of the same thing. And you can simplify by dividing both parts by the same thing. So it says you can make equivalent rational expressions by multiplying both parts of the same thing. And you can simplify rational expressions by canceling common factors. Okay, so let's look at a few examples. Let's look at number 1. It says in each case, factor the numerator and denominators to simplify each rational expression. So if I look at problem number 1, my numerator is going to stay 8, and my denominator I can factor out of 4. So I'm going to have x minus 3 left. So when I reduce, I can divide both numerator and denominator by 4. So what I end up with is 2 over x minus 3. Okay, let's look at number 2. Again, my numerator is going to stay at 3. I've got 6x plus 15. So what does 6 and 15 have in common? That's right, I can factor out a 3. So I'm going to have 2x plus 5 left in the denominator. Again, my 3's will cancel, and what I'm left with is 1 over 2x plus 5. When the numerator cancels and there's nothing left, make sure you put a 1 in its place. Okay, so look at number 3. I got 2x over x squared minus 3x. I'm going to factor out an x. So I have x parentheses, x minus 3. Now here, my x's will cancel. And so what I'm left with is 2 over x minus 3. Okay, let's look at number 4. Now number 4, I'm going to have to simplify both the numerator, factor both the numerator and the denominator. So the numerator I can factor out of 4. And then in my denominator, I can also factor out a 4, and I'm going to have x minus 3 left. So my 4's will cancel, and then I'm left with 2x plus 3 over x minus 3. Okay, let's look at number 5. What would I factor out of the numerator? That's right, I'm going to factor out a 3, and I have x minus 4 left. In my denominator, what am I going to factor? That's right, at x. So I have x parentheses x minus 4. So here, my x minus 4's are going to actually cancel. And what I'm left with is 3 over x. Now let's look at number 6. My x plus 5 is going to stay the same because I can't factor anything out of my numerator. But my denominator is x squared minus 25. So here, remember, this is called a difference of squares. So I have x plus 5, and I have x minus 5. So my x plus 5's cancel. And what number am I going to put in its place if my numerator cancels? That's right, a number 1. So I have 1 over x minus 5. Okay, so let's look at number 7. Okay, looking at 7, 8, and 9, guys. Here we have a trinomial. So I'm going to remind you guys how to do SPT, but what I'm hoping is by working these lessons that you guys can start doing SPT in your head. So if I look at my numerator, I have 4x plus 8, so I have a 4 in common. So I'm going to factor out the 4. So I have x plus 2 left on top. Okay, now let me remind you how to do SPT. For my denominator, I have 3x squared plus 4x minus 4. So remember, 3 is my A, 4 is my B, and negative 4 is my C. So here's my SPT. And remember, S is always your B term, and P is A times C. Please make sure you're writing this down. So my S is going to be a positive 4, and my P, A times C, is a negative 12. So I'm coming up with two numbers I can multiply together to give me a negative 12 that will add to give me a positive 4. So I might have 6 and negative 2. Once I get these two answers, remember I'm going to do my rewrite process. So my A term stays the same. I'm rewriting my B term. So instead of plus 4x, I have plus 6x minus 2x, and then I have minus 4. My next step is grouping. So I group the first two and I group the last two, and then I'm going to factor. So I have a 3x in common in the first two terms. So I'm going to be left with x plus 2. And in my second term, I factor out a negative 2, and I'm going to have x plus 2 left. Remember, if my two parentheses match, that's one of my terms. So I'm going to have an x plus 2. And whatever's left, which is my 3x and my minus 2, I put those together to get my second term. So my x plus 2's cancel, and what I'm left with is 4 over 3x minus 2. Okay, so let's look at 8 and 9. Now again, using the SPT method, you are more than welcome to use that. Again, I want you to try and practice doing factoring in your head. So let's look at number 8. Okay, my numerator is x squared minus 5x minus 14. So when I factor that, I'm going to have an x minus 7 and an x plus 2. So negative 7 times positive 2 is the negative 14. And then negative 7 plus 2 is a negative 5. Okay, same thing on the denominator. I have x squared plus 8x plus 12. So here I'm going to have x plus 6 and x plus 2. My x plus 2's cancel, and I'm left with x minus 7 over x plus 6. Okay, looking at number 9, here I'm going to have 2x plus 5 and 5x minus 2. In my denominator, I'm going to end up with 5x minus 2 and 5x minus 2. And so here, my 5x minus 2's cancel, and I'm left with 2x plus 5 over 5x minus 2. Now, what I would like for you guys to do is doing questions 8 and 9. Although I gave you the answer, I want you to try and use SPT to make sure you get the same exact answer. Now, if y'all look on the next page, there are 9 practice problems. We will work those 9 in class.